Buying a used grill is a great way to save some cash if you're willing to invest the time. And I'm going to give you my top 7 tips with some real examples and stories, including a deal that I messed up recently. The first one is to look when demand is lower. And the best deal I ever got was buying a Performer in the middle of January when there wasn't a lot of competition. Now that may not be possible for everybody, but there are ways for you to artificially reduce that demand by looking in places that other people aren't. One of the best ways to do that is to search for things that not everybody else is searching for. For example, if you spell Weber W-E-B-B-E-R, you're likely to find some things that people won't be looking for because they're searching for the correct spelling of W-E-B-E-R. Now that got me this great top-of-the-line Weber Kettle for only $20. Only problem was it wasn't actually top of the line and it's missing the ash catcher. But for 20 bucks, that's not a bad deal. And you can use the same process for searching for things like barbecue versus BBQ or grill, smoker, all the different things that people may call it because they may not list out the exact model or brand name that you're looking for, but if you look around and cast a really wide net, you're more likely to find those really good deals. Another important tip is to make sure that you aren't somebody else's garbage collector. Some of these grills are destined for the trash heap and you don't need to be the one to go put it there. For example, look at this Weber Spirit. They said that it's having some problems. It might be missing some parts, including the knobs, and the natural gas hose is messed up, so you know that you're in for quite a bit of money in order to be able to restore this one. Let's go ahead and leave that one in the trash heap or in their backyard. You'll also find a lot of other old grills like these two that are completely hammered and weathered, and there's a good reason why they moved on and bought some newer ones. You don't need to invest in something that is that old unless it's really cool and vintage. And you always need to be ready to jump on a good deal. And one way of doing that is being able to store the cash in advance so that way you don't have to go to the bank before you go and make the purchase. I was looking at something over the holiday weekend and all of the banks were closed, and that meant that I missed out on a pretty good deal that I've been looking for a while. Missed it by that much. But the reason why this is so important is because there are 2 different kinds of sellers out there in the market. One of them is the one that knows what they have and wants to get the maximum profit for whatever they're selling. The other one is someone who knows that there's value in the thing that they have and they just want to get into the hands of someone who's going to enjoy it. The easiest way to do that is to price it low so that way they don't have to waste a ton of time finding a good buyer. And when you find a deal like that, they're not going to last for a long time, so you have to be ready to jump or else they'll disappear. Because if you spend enough time on the classifieds, you're going to be able to know the difference between a really good deal and one that's just mediocre. And then when the good deal comes along, you're going to be able to jump in and be ready to negotiate. Because the price listed in the ad may not be the minimum price that the seller is willing to let that item go for. And you can take some chances and be able to offer a little bit less just to see if they bite. And if the original price isn't so high that it would be a deal breaker for me, I always like to do the negotiation in person. Because it's a lot harder to say no to somebody who's standing in front of you with the cash than it is with someone who's sending you a text message, and you know that if you take that deal right now, you're going to get the rest of your Saturday back and get back to doing what you really want to do with that little bit of money in your pocket. But that only works if you know the market pretty well and the prices that certain items are going for. Let me give you a few examples that I found in my local classifieds. So this one is a classic example of someone who is completely fed up and done with charcoal grilling because it comes with all the accessories and a half a bag of charcoal to boot. The only problem is this copper kettle has a little bit of damage on the lid, so it's not in pristine condition. And for that price of $200, you could spend just a little bit more, buy one brand new, and it would come with a warranty without the damage altogether. Most accessories aren't really a selling point for me, so I'd probably let this one pass. When it comes to this new in the box Weber Spirit, they're selling it for the exact same price that you could buy it for on Amazon today. So that'll really only save you the tax, but you risk not having all the parts or some unknown damage, and you lose any warranty coverage whatsoever. It's worth it to spend just a little bit more for a new item and go ahead and get that warranty. So I got really excited when I saw this Weber Genesis because it's one of the cool vintage ones that has the wood slats, and these are becoming way more popular, and that means that the prices are slowly rising. This one happens to be in really good condition, which makes the price just a tiny bit high, but it could be a fair deal if you don't want to do a lot of research because they don't come around all that often. And one of the greatest finds in the classifieds is a Weber Performer, including this one that's selling for only $100. And yes, it is one of the older models, and you can tell by looking at the ash catcher because it's twisted ever so slightly instead of pointing straight out. It also has the plastic top, which is in great condition. These often crack, but this one doesn't seem to have a lot of sun damage. And if you look at the grill grates, they look pretty great too. It also comes with a cover, which will save you about $50. And you know it's being used because if you look at this one, you can tell that it doesn't have a lot of sun damage and is good to go. This one is a winner in my book, and I would absolutely run out and buy it if I was in the market. And it's also a good idea to establish how they want you to pay for the item before you go. Because if you're planning on paying with Venmo and they prefer cash, you're gonna have to make a run to the bank, and that could cause you to miss out on a deal. And as a seller, I absolutely prefer cash because something like Venmo could have the buyer end up disputing the charge later, and then you don't have the item and you're also out the money. But that doesn't impact the buyer, so if the seller wants to use Venmo and that's your preference, by all means, go ahead and do it. But you just have to watch out for a few scams that I'm going to talk about now. One of the best ways to identify scams is to ask really good questions from the beginning. For example, if you say, "Hello, is this item still available?" That's not nearly as good as asking a well thought out question about the item and how you might use it or its condition. And most of the classified scams are going after the seller, but even as the buyer, you could be impacted. So if you see a deal that's way too good to be true, and then you contact the seller and they're asking for a deposit or some other money in order to be able to hold it for you, it may be too good to be true, and for me, that's a pass. I would absolutely walk away unless I was totally willing to give up whatever the deposit was just for the chance of being wrong. And people will tell you that you should always meet in a public place when you're trying to buy something from somebody you don't know. The only challenge is a lot of these grills are too big to meet at a gas station or the police station or in the middle of the Walmart parking lot. It's very likely that you're going to end up in somebody's backyard. And in that case, it's a really good idea to bring a friend along, and bonus points if they like grills because they can help you make the purchase, but even just say that they're there to help you lift up the grill to load it up, and they're also there to back you up in case something doesn't go as planned. And another thing that's not quite a scam, but is still something you want to watch out for, is buying items that are not quite as described as they were in the ads or in the text message that they sent you. And that's one reason why I like to trust, but verify any of the findings and make sure that what I'm having in front of me looks like it was online, because some people are really good at taking pictures. So let me tell you what happened when I went out to buy this Kettle Joe. And I've been looking for a long time trying to find one because I thought they were really cool, but I didn't want to pay full price for one that was new. So I found one that was just gently used. And the seller was very upfront. He said that he didn't know what the weight capacity of the side tables were, but he knew it was less than the neighbor kid who decided to use it as a jungle gym and ended up breaking the brackets. He told me that it would be about $20 to replace the part, or I could try to bend it back. And that seemed totally reasonable for a bracket, and so I took him at his word and left. And to my surprise, it wasn't the brackets that were bent, it was the entire side table itself, and I looked online and found that those parts were more like $80 instead of the $20 he told me that it would be. But it turns out he was right and I was wrong. I was looking at the wrong parts. I was looking for side tables for a much higher end grill. The ones for this one really are $20 for each side, which is exactly what he said. And I shouldn't be that surprised because he's someone I knew from the local barbecue group, and he left me with some canned pickled jalapenos that he made, as well as some smoked salsa, and that is a great person to buy from, and he pitched in those extra just to be nice. So Brandon, if you're watching, thank you. But the same thing could happen to you whether or not the seller discloses them, which is why you want to give a good look to everything that you buy. You may find that there's some rust or things that are falling apart, or if you have that mental parts list, you know how much things cost. When you go and look at it, you can start to add it up and find out if that deal really is as good as you thought it was, and you always have a chance to be able to walk away. If you're looking at something like a gas grill, I always like to fire it up and make sure that the burners burn clean, look how dirty the grill is, and if it's a pellet grill, you 100% want to fire it up and turn it on, because it's a real bummer if you take it home to find out that the main control board is fried or that they burnt up the probe in a grease fire. All those things can be replaced, but it's going to take a lot of time and effort to be able to fix them. And the most important tip of all is to make sure whatever item you're buying is going to fit in the car that you bring to pick it up. And I know that seems silly, but you don't want to be like me when I bought a brand new Weber Performer, new in the box, and found out that it is exactly the size of my back seat. It barely slid in there. And if you have other tips, make sure that you share them down in the comments below so that way other people can benefit as well. And if used grills really aren't your thing, I have this great grill buying guide for brand new ones that'll go over the pros and cons of different types of grills so you can get exactly what you need.